Hey guys, it's Matt Shu from Upright Health. Let's talk about back pain and this amazing article in The Economist. The issue is January 18th, 24th, 2020. It goes into some great information on back pain. Before we jump into it, I do want to send a shout out to viewer Paji, who mentioned that she or he really appreciates that I'm doing these videos in real life, showing that my house is dirty, that I've got toddler shirts lying around, that I've got dirty diapers lying around. I really care about the information that's on this channel, and I care about helping people make better decisions about their bodies, and I'm willing to do that in the filth that is my own home. It's actually not that filthy, but I mean, there's a toddler around, so there's traces of all kinds of gross things. Let's talk about this issue in The Economist. What the heck do economists know about back pain? Well, they know that they want to help people save money, sort of, or at least allocate money in better ways. And so they are summarizing a bunch of research that's been done on back pain and the treatments for it in rich nations, and they're looking at trends of what's happening in poorer nations and developing nations that also have back pain, right? So there's a bunch of stuff in this issue. I just want to touch on some key points that I think are really important for you to hear. If you have back pain, or even if you have hip pain or shoulder pain, there are some big lessons in here that you want to take away. So first things first, in America, we spend a crap ton of money on back pain. We spend $88 billion a year to treat back and neck pain. That's a little bit less than $115 billion spent treating cancer. So there's a lot of money. And top level summary, for most back pain, the best treatment is non-medical. Do some stretching exercises, keep moving, don't give up work or lie in bed for days on end. That will probably make things worse. Again, you may be asking, how is it that The Economist is saying this? It's because they're quoting directly from medical experts and medical research that has shown this to be the case. Also, you know, well, they didn't ask me. I was going to say they asked me, but they didn't ask me. But I've been saying this for a while. So the thing is, there's some big problems in the medical industry around back pain. And you're probably thinking, well, if what The Economist is saying is correct, how come doctors aren't doing these right things and telling me I need to exercise and telling me to go stretch? Well, couple answers. First, it is easier for a doctor to prescribe painkillers, scans, or injections than to explain to patients that such treatments are unlikely to work. Doctors and hospitals are often paid more for doing things than for giving advice, which is something that we've mentioned on this channel and on our podcast. The way the medical system is set up is not to provide the least invasive option or the most cost-effective. It's to give you the thing that they can bill for. Whether or not your doctor is somebody who has good intentions is completely irrelevant. I would say most doctors have good intentions. It's just that the strategies and treatments they have to employ are often, I'd say, misguided, and also are put in place by interests that do not align with yours. So we'll get into that. They mention here that basically more research has to be done, and also governments and insurers need to start paying for the right things like exercise and alternative therapies and not surgeries. This will be hard. Costly interventions have a powerful lobby, and there's no exercise industrial complex to counterbalance it. The exercise industrial complex is channels like this, where we're talking about how exercise can help you stave off and get rid of pain and live a better life. We don't have the same budget as a medical device manufacturer who stands to make $500 billion a year off selling sutures and staples and little drills and all kinds of things to orthopedic surgeons. So that's maybe a deeper topic for another day. So couple other highlights here. They mention that only 1 to 5% of people with back pain have a problem that actually needs urgent attention. And those are people who have an infection or a tumor, and that's super rare. Again, this is saying 1 to 5%. That even sounds high to me. In America and Western Europe, guidelines say it's only when you have red flags like fever, infection, fever, right, or incontinence, or severe weight loss, which would be signs of an infection or tumor. Only when you have those kinds of things are those red flags that would basically dictate that you should get the MRI and X-ray to see what's going on. Yet general practitioners and hospitals routinely ignore this, sending 40 to 60% of people with back pain to be scanned, far more than they did 20 years ago. There's broad consensus that about 80% of such scans are completely useless. And in fact, they can actually be worse than useless, because what happens is they make you think that the things you see in the scans are the reason that you're hurting, and they make you think you're broken and that you need a surgery that will be ineffective in the long run. So they mention here that when you see these things, you may be told like, oh, you have these abnormalities, but guess what? Those abnormalities are really common in people with no back pain. Something that we've mentioned about hip pain, shoulder pain, and back pain here on this channel many, many times. The stiffness and weakening, so once somebody sees that, the doctor might tell you, go relax, don't do anything. And then the economist here is saying the stiffness and weakening of the muscles this inactivity brings often makes things worse. So then you're just lying in bed and your body is getting weaker, your function is getting worse, and then you discover, hey, now I'm not getting any better and the medical advice is not helping me. That's something that's happened to me. In 2011, Cigna, an American health insurance company, ran a follow-up study on patients who had undergone spinal fusion for their back pain. So some people out there will say spinal fusion, amazing, it helps, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Some people, it for sure has helped. Kind of, right? Some people have felt better after spinal fusion. Here's what happened when Cigna looked at the results of the surgery. So the company found that 2 years after treatment, 87% of customers were still in pain severe enough for medication or some other treatment. 15% had more surgery. So you think about those numbers. If you're deciding whether or not you want to get a surgery to fix your back pain and it fails 87% of the time to relieve your back pain, do you want to do that? Do you really want to have somebody cut your whole body open and then start molding things and cementing? No, you don't. You don't want somebody to do those things. Yes, if you're desperate, you may think that's the best option because insurance covers it. But guess what? Just because insurance covers it doesn't mean it works. So Cigna already saw it doesn't work. But this comes up later in the article. Once a procedure of some kind is already covered either by a private insurer or Medicare, it becomes really hard to get it not covered, right? So once they sneak it in and get it covered as an effective treatment, even if research shows up after the fact that says this is not an effective treatment, insurance companies, Medicare, they keep paying for it. Now, how do you slip those things in? How do you get these procedures and all these little devices approved to get paid for? Well, you have lobbyists. So this is where the medical device manufacturers with their very deep pockets get to fund research that shows that their treatments are really effective, and once they're in, they're in. So spinal fusion is a perfect example. They used to say that spinal fusion was like 90% effective for back pain, and that's really the only thing you should consider for back pain. And now you're down to 13%. Like, just think about the numbers. It's not like spinal fusion was introduced to the market as something that was 13% effective. It was introduced as, it's highly effective, it's a miracle cure for your back. You can still find ads about spinal fusion that say that. And the reality is the medical research isn't there to back it up. The medical research shows that spinal fusion is really not that great. And this is true across multiple surgeries over time. You see this with knee surgeries, hip surgeries. Initially, the marketing around these surgeries is that they're highly effective. It's the best thing you could possibly do. It gets right to the problem. And then after a decade or 2 decades of research, people realize that they're not anywhere near as effective as they thought, and then the percentage of success starts to go down. Now, in this article, they do talk about that phenomenon and like a little piece of why that happens. So spinal surgeons, for their part, often take a dim view of evidence that what they do may be ineffective. Their training is basically on an apprenticeship model. You learn from a master, a great guru, and you do what they taught you. You don't learn from a paper in the British Medical Journal, says Andrew Carr, who heads the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at Oxford University. Surgeons generally consider an operation successful if the incision is small, things heal nicely, and there are no complications. Says Maurits van Tulder from, I can't pronounce that, from a university in Amsterdam. If they ever hear back from patients, that is usually from those for whom the operation worked, which leads surgeons to believe that it works most of the time. So this is something that's come up a lot around hip surgeries, shoulder surgeries. People will say like, well, surgeons would obviously know how effective the surgery is because they're doing the surgery. The reality is no, a lot of times they don't, and they're also biased to believe that what they're doing works because it's what they do, and they want to help people. So they're trying to help people, they're doing this thing, they hear back from patients who say it worked, so they say, yeah, what I'm doing is good, I learned from the master, it's great, I'm going to keep doing this. It also pays my bills really well because I'm making 5, 10, 15K per procedure, right? Whatever, in the United States it can get pretty high up there. I doubt it's that high if you're a British surgeon, but in the United States, some of these high volume providers can definitely be making a lot of money. So Dr. Carr says it's really hard, it's still hard to convince surgeons that what they have been doing for most of their careers is ineffective. So you just imagine if you spent your whole life doing spinal surgeries or hip surgeries, shoulder surgeries, you were trained to believe that that worked and you were helping people and you made a lot of money doing it. So there's gonna be some high hurdles to getting you to think maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Even if the British Medical Journal or somebody else says that your surgeries don't work, it's really easy for you to retreat to, well, maybe the surgeons who were part of that study were just incompetent. And you'll see those types of remarks from surgeons who don't want to accept research. I've literally seen those exact remarks from hip surgeons who are convinced that hip surgery is the best way to treat hip pain. So now, what about all these treatments? Well, back pain is big business, right? They actually mention that here. You have medical device manufacturers that are funding continuing education courses for surgeons, for family doctors, and it's all in the service of selling their products so that their products get used in the surgical suite, okay? So it's not like they're just being really nice. They do have a motive, they do have an agenda, and they're trying to sell stuff that you can use for surgery, which is why surgery gets prescribed so much. Finally, with family doctors, doctor here mentions that for family doctors, they're woefully undertrained to treat common unglamorous conditions like bad backs. In most medical curricula, musculoskeletal conditions like back pain are a minor feature. Back pain is not sexy for medical students. Even if they're going to be family doctors, they want to hear about cures for cancer and impressive forms of surgery rather than humdrum stuff like back pain or preventing falls in older people. I get it, that's fine, that's cool, but daily life requires non-drastic interventions. So when you're trying to get your body to move better, you want it to feel right, then you need to be patient, right? You can't just throw the worst possible thing possible at it and start stabbing it and hoping that it gets better. That's literally what the surgical intervention is. So in summary, they're basically saying, hey, you need to be exercising, you need to be moving, and also they're saying the therapies for it are really not that great because they're not well funded, right? That was my experience. My back pain issues way back when lasted for years. I had bad back pain and a really unstable back for a while because I didn't know what to do about it. My back got weaker because I followed the medical advice and I took Vicodin for 2 days and nothing happened. What's really interesting is they mentioned in this article that opioids are barely more effective, if they are more effective at pain relief than ibuprofen. So when I was 16 and the doctor prescribed Vicodin to me, you know, it's not that he was he had bad intentions. He thought he was giving me something that was more effective because the marketing behind the treatment was really good, and they told family doctors, hey, keep pushing these pain pills because they're better than the other pain pills. Except now we all know those pain pills were being marketed in a way that was less than honest. So thankfully, I didn't end up addicted. And thankfully, I ended up learning how to exercise my body properly. And if you're looking for ways to do that, check out the description box. We've got all kinds of links. We've got a link to the Back Pain Fix. That's a program designed to help you understand your back pain, how to understand how to free your shoulders, your hips, and your spinal muscles so that you're able to move without pain and you can restore function again. It's not about super sweaty, hardcore workouts and trying to be super buff. It's about learning how to restore proper movement patterns over time, gradually, so that you're able to move all of your body correctly. And it's just focused very much on people who have back pain. So if that's you, description box for the link. I'll also try to put it up somewhere up here in the corner. Finally, to end this article, they talk about the hope that all this medical research on back pain would stop the spread of surgeries and injections and x-rays and MRIs in poorer countries. Because all this data shows all this stuff is useless or worse than useless for people with back pain. And unfortunately, they found that this debacle is happening in countries like Brazil, India, Iran, China, Nepal. Everybody's following the rich American path of getting unnecessary, invasive, and extremely expensive surgeries. So, sorry to everybody out there. I hope people in Brazil, India, China, Nepal, etc., 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 can learn from the example of people in the United States and avoid those types of treatments. Just because the doctors are saying they work now doesn't mean in 20 years they're going to be saying the same thing. And in fact, based on the research, they should not be saying it at all. So pick up a copy of The Economist. If you're already a subscriber, then you should have it in your stack of unread magazines and other literature. Go to their website maybe. I'm not affiliated with The Economist. I just think this is a really great article. I'll leave links hopefully to some other resources on back pain down there, maybe some back tips. And there's a really great book about back pain from an author that I interviewed last year that's really worth listening to. We have a great podcast episode on that. In any case, if you've got back pain, what kind of things have you tried and realized were a total waste of time? Leave your comment down in the comment section below. How much have you spent? I'd be curious to know that. How much did you spend on treatments that were ineffective and turned out to be a total waste of your time? That'd be really interesting. I know I spent a bunch of money trying to fix my back pain with things that didn't work before I realized exercise helps. So yeah, and if you have other questions, comments, you want to remark on my toddler life and all the crap in this house, feel free to do that also in the comment section below. But be nice if you're going to talk about how dirty it is, because my wife does a really good job. It's just every single morning that toddler boy just destroys everything, and then I turn on the camera. So anyway, subscribe, bell icon, don't miss out on future videos. Back Pain Fix, description box, subscribe, like, etc., etc., etc. And remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.